and Lagos holds interdenominational service for Armed Forces Remembrance. Let's get started with the Lagos State 2022 budget analysis, which is tagged Budget of Consolidation. Now, the budget breakdown presented by the State Commissioner for Economic Planning and Budget, Sam Egube, says infrastructure development represents 35% of the entire budget size of 1.758 trillion naira approved for the year.
Mr. Governor, on SDG and investment.
Governor Babajide Sanwo-Olu signing into law the 2022 appropriation law on the last day of 2021, a move which signals the commencement of work for the new year. The Ministry of Economic Planning and Budget is given a breakdown of the amount allocated to major sectors in the budget. Infrastructure appears to be taking the lion's share.
The 2022 budget, which we have christened the Budget of Consolidation, is a landmark budget in the history of the state, both in its size and texture. The approved 2020 budget of 1.758 trillion, made up of 1.167 trillion capital expenditure and 591 billion recurrent expenditure, results in a capital to recurrent ratio of 66 to 34% in favor of our capital expenditure, which means that this budget focuses quite heavily and deliberately by 66% on our capital spend around our infrastructure. Total revenue is estimated at 1.237 trillion, while deficit funding requirement is 521 billion, which is 21% of our debt service to total revenue. This is within the fiscal sustainability benchmark of 40% by the federal government and 30% by the World Bank. What this shows is that Lagos State has huge capacity because of our natural performance, our very aggressive performance on our revenue lines, generally, to take on more debt to fund further and accelerate our infrastructure position. So this increased deficit positioning, which we are seeing, only brings us to a 21% debt service to total revenue sustainability position. Infrastructure is essential to statewide economic and social development. It is therefore important that we accelerate the completion of our ongoing project to release the inherent value of the projects to the people of Lagos. This is especially important given that this is the last full year budget of this administration. Accordingly, we have increased our investment in infrastructure by 86% over prior year budget to 619 billion, representing 35% of the entire budget size.
The Commission is in charge of education, energy and mineral resources as well as transportation, also on ground to give more details on their various sectors.
New classroom blocks, new schools, entirely new schools, expansion of existing schools because we've already agreed that we are going to provide multiple pathways for students in our schools by ensuring that within the same campus they are able to attend general education classes, all vocational classes. And of course, we'll still expand LASPEC by adding what we call monotechnics, that is focused on IT, focused on fashion design, and so on. So for all this, we plan to spend a minimum of like 10 billion naira. Like the commissioner said, for economic planning and budget said, the most critical factor in school is actually the quality of teaching and learning that goes on in the classroom. And while infrastructure is great and remarkable, and of course you can only learn better in a good environment, and we continue to improve our existing schools. We've already had over 1,400 projects in our existing schools to date. So even though I've said 10 billion on expansion and so on, we still have at least 2 to 3 billion for the reconstruction and of existing schools, windows, doors, and so on. Like you said, the most critical factor is teaching and learning, and we are very happy to let the public know that all our efforts at infrastructure, at integration with technology, at improving teaching by resourcing our teachers, training our teachers, giving them tablets in the primary schools and so on, has led to a really, really remarkable increase in performance. If I take the secondary schools, the WAEC results went up from 39% to 79.4% this year.
We're spending 153 billion to complete the first phase of the red line as well as the first phase of the blue line, so that we can then get it into passenger operation by the fourth quarter of 2022. When you look at the junction of the Ikorodu, it's not a matter of putting a bridge. So when you look at Lagos and you understand the traffic in Lagos, you would understand that Lagos State cannot build itself out of congestion. And so we have to look at the best solution for various junctions. With regard to Ikorodu roundabout, I think the solution there is not really a bridge. The solution there is expanding that junction, improving the public transport circulation in Ikorodu, and making sure that we build laybys for the public transport buses to go into. And then ensuring that those who want to go into Ikorodu Road, we have a dedicated lane for them. Those who want to go straight, across, we have a dedicated lane. So it's a matter of rearranging or reconfiguring the junction in such a way that everybody has a chance of navigating that junction at the shortest possible time. So we're signalizing that junction. We're taking out the roundabout. And then there are other measures, such as, the inner roads that will be improving, so that people are not just captive to that major road. There are other options that people can take.
So we're at 73% right now, but by the end of March, we expect to be at 100%. So any street in Lagos that has street lighting will be lit up. 949 kilometers of street lighting are currently working today in Lagos out of 1,300. And we expect that by the end of March, we'll be at the 1,300 mark. That's 100%, and you can take my word for that. So in addition to this, how do we keep these lights on? We know that there's a problem currently with power generation and power supply in Nigeria. Everybody has their own generator on the back of their house if you can afford it. We're running these street lights based on generators as well. We have a whole lot of them across Lagos. The other thing we're doing is we're changing the generators gradually from running on diesel and polluting the environment to running on gas. So that we expect to start next month, and by the end of this year, the streets or the air in Lagos should be a lot cleaner because we would have replaced about 90% of them. We also currently have the same 4 power stations that are also connected to the street light and also supplying other Lagos infrastructure. We're going to continue to maintain that. And one of the landmark things we expect to do this year is working with the federal government is to recreate a Lagos electricity market such that we can carve out a niche in Lagos and improve power supply in Lagos independently of the rest of the country. So far, waiting for the rest of the country to improve and dragging Lagos along is keeping us from where we need to be. So this year we expect to achieve that working with the federal government.
That's not all. The state government is also prioritizing existing contractor-funded infrastructure projects that will be beneficial to residents of the state.
The second objective is basically to prioritize existing contractor-funded infrastructure projects, meaning that there are certain projects that are strategic to the state, which we have front-loaded through arrangement with our contractors to move ahead of payment. Some of these projects include the completion of 8 stadia across the 5 Ibile divisions of Lagos State to facilitate youth development, engagement, and community sports. To the construction and rehabilitation of schools across the state to significantly improve access to quality education. The construction of the 6-lane reinforced concrete Lekki-Ekpe Expressway from Eleko Junction to Ekpe T Junction. This strategic project is aimed at accommodating the increasing huge and heavy vehicular movements in the Lekki-Ekpe axis, especially when the deep sea port and the Dangote refineries et al. Comes into operation. The procurement of 62 fire vehicles to improve our fire response service all over Lagos by further decentralizing of operating locations of all over the states of our fire service operation. This will strengthen our emergency response capability. And then the construction of a 130-bed new Mercy ultra-modern and fit-for-purpose pediatric programmed and emergency general hospital. We believe that when this hospital, which will be located at Lagos Island, is completed, it will be the largest specialist children's hospital in sub-Saharan Africa. And then the construction of the Ekwebi Link Bridge to Maryland that will improve significantly travel time and alternative route options in the axis. All these projects are contractor-funded with structures that provide very beneficial payment terms that give the state upfront value ahead of payments, thereby increasing the sustainability benefits to the state. Human capital continues to be an area of deep interest to the state. We believe that the opportunities in the state can only be converted to value by a population that is healthy, skilled, and inclusive. This year's budget increased our investment in this regard by 30% to 325 billion in 2022, which is about 18% of the total budget size.
The Lagos State approved budget for the year 2022 includes 1.167 trillion naira for capital expenditure, 591.281 billion naira for recurrent. Total revenue is estimated at 1.237 trillion naira. Deficit funding requirement is 521.275 billion naira, which is 21% of debt service, falls within the fiscal sustainability benchmark of 40%.